Hi everyone, welcome back to my podcast, and this is episode 2. I'm Stephen. I'm an ex-Royal Naval clearance diver. I'm also was a salvage diver, and then I worked offshore as an air and saturation diver. These podcasts are really about my time pre-Navy, during the Navy, and then after the Navy. There's some interesting stories. Some of them are funny, some of them are quite sad, and some of them are a bit frightening. This particular episode, the last episode, covered the period when I was young and some of the events that drove me to join the Navy. This episode is going to cover that period when I join up and that basic training period. So you guys relax and enjoy this episode. It all starts when, obviously, I've passed all the relevant interviews, etc. to get in the Navy. I get issued my warrant to travel to Plymouth. And eventually I'll be joining HMS Raleigh, which was a training establishment down there. You get the train down, it's overnight, and you're met at the station with a load of other recruits. And my particular batch was about 22 or 23, I think. And it's interesting because you all get off, you all look a bit like disoriented and slightly frightening as well, because the age groups are between 16, well, my particular group, 16 to 23, and I was 17 at the time, so quite young. But you're guided through and you're brought back to a block. Now, this is not the start, really. It is, I suppose, the start of basic training, but it's a period, it's about a week, which is quite relaxed, and you kind of go, whoa, this is nice. You know, the chief's talking to us nicely, everything's cool. But it's the period where you get the administration done. You get your haircut, you get issued your uniform, etc. And they teach you a bit about the Navy, about, you know, the equipment and the uniform you're being given, how to maintain it. So it's a week of kind of introduction to the Navy, which I thought was rather good, actually. I thought it was very good. And one of the stories, obviously, it was the 70s, and prior to joining up, I had, like most people, a feather cut. The number of times, because I was quite blonde, the number of times I was chatted up by a guy who thought I was a girl. It's the way it is, I suppose, but they were very popular then. I'm sure a few people who are watching us can remember that. But my father said, look, you know, get your hair cut, short at the sides, and you'll be okay. Don't worry. So we all go for our haircut. And I wander in, and the guy goes, how would you like it done, sir? And I'm thinking, that's pretty civilized, you know. And I said, well, can you just take it into the sides a bit shorter, but leave the top? Oh, of course, sir, no problem at all. Click, 1/4 inch, and just proceeds to shave my head completely, a 1/4 inch cut. Just shaves it when he's laughing. He must have done it to every single kid that went in there. Just so funny. We all came out and we looked completely bald, like convicts. But in some ways, what it does is it brings you all the same. And it's great for washing your hair, get up in the morning, quick shower, your hair dries very quickly. I remember getting my passport photograph as well, which I still have, and I look like a white Biafran. I just look so skinny and disorientated. So that week, really, they assess you, you know, who needs more attention than who doesn't, you know, because there's some young guys and they've never been away from home, and I think they realise that as well. But as we came to the end of that week, obviously the chief came to me, took me aside, and said, "You are going to be the class leader." I was like, no idea what that meant. And he explained that you are going to be in charge. It's going to be your responsibility to get the guys up and get them motivated in the morning, get them down and bring them to class. You'll have a second in command, and the second in command was a guy that was ex-Royal Navy Reserve, and he knew everything about the Navy. He was about three years older than me. But, when we were talking, he would just know everything. If the chief asked a question, he would be the first to answer. And he would always say, X-R-N-R, sir, X-R-N-R. But what they did realise was he was a bit overweight, and I don't know why to this day they picked me out of 23 people who were older as well. But I'm glad he did. And you get like a stripe and a crown, and you are technically in charge. I mean, you have a PO who is overall in charge of the class, but on the ground level and getting people to class, it really is down to the class leader. I got additional training as well once we moved from this block that was quite easygoing. You leave there and you go into the real training then, and you're in a block with probably, our class was Anson 43, so the Anson block, and we were number 43, there was numerous other classes there. I mean, 10 other massive rooms with 20 odd people in it, with a bed and a little locker you have. We eventually get there, and I get additional training because really they want me to be able to march the class, to understand a bit more about everything, really. But of course, I'm fairly young, and I don't really have any experience of the Navy. And one of the worst things was that I had to march the class. So straight out the first week, we all mustered downstairs, and the PO who was taking control of our class, he just said, "Right, Hart, you march the class to our new accommodation." I'd never really done it. He sort of told me, to keep them in left, right, left, you stay to the side, make sure they stay in formation as much as they can. And so we took off. Now, the thing was that if you were outside the accommodation, and you're on your own or with a few other people, if you weren't marching, you were running. That's it. It's a full stop. As soon as you got out of the accommodation, you had to run, which I thought was a great. I didn't really worry. But so I got the class, and we set off marching, and I'm feeling reasonably good because we're all young, we don't really know how to march too well, but we're staying in formation, the PO's checking and sorting things out. And as we're going along, I see a young officer coming towards us, and the PO said, "Right, Hart, you know what to do. You give the command, eyes right. You salute, the officer will salute, the men will turn their eyes." So he's just telling everybody what to do. And as we get closer, I get more and more nervous. I'd never done it before. And I give the command, "Eyes left." I couldn't believe it. In my brain, I knew he was on the right. My mouth said, "Eyes left." Thank God. Everybody in the class looked to the right. Even I saluted to the right. And I do remember this officer coming towards me, and he kind of just caught my eye. He took my salute, and he just shook his head. And you're a young guy. You've only been in a week or so, and it's pretty devastating. But I remember our P.O. Dent, a really good P.O. He just came up alongside me, leaned in my ear and said, "You are a effing wanker, Hart." And that was it. And we just continued to our new accommodation. So that reflects slightly that military attitude, and that is, they're not going to prolong it. This is my experience. It's a sharp delivery of whatever, we're not happy. You made a mistake, don't make it again. Well, there's another story further on where I do get it right, but even if I get it right, it's wrong. And that's another thing about the military. When you think you're right, you're wrong. So if we continue, we eventually get to the block where we are. And you start to learn how to iron, how to fold things. Because in the Navy, everything has to be the size of the Naval handbook. It has to be folded exactly like that and laid out in your bed. So you have things like called rounds where they come round and in the evening, you've got a young officer come round and look at your accommodation. Remember, it's like 20 odd beds and, every bed has to be absolutely immaculate. And I do remember, as class leader, I would have to report a room ready for rounds. So I'd be standing outside the door. The officer would come along and I'd say, answer 43 class accommodation ready for your inspection, sir. And he would come in. I always remember this young officer. I mean, I was 17. He couldn't have been any more than sort of 20, whatever. And he came in, but obviously he'd been told by some of the older hands to say, yeah, you might have an immaculate room. Asked to look at their baggage room. And first thing he said, oh, yes, Hart, yeah. I want to see your baggage room. I was like, okay. Never heard it. Went and got the key. Now, the baggage room is where we just store all our unused kit. And it's always a tip. So you unlock it, open it, and true enough, there's all the kit bags all piled on top, full of clothes. And he goes, Hart, empty that kit bag for me, will you please? So emptied it. And he goes, yeah. See the way these clothes are packed tightly, Hart? Do you know the problem with that? And I said, is it spontaneous combustion, sir? And he went, well done. Well done, Hart. Excellent. What sort of mentality is that they assumed that you didn't know the reason compacting anything can create spontaneous combustion? I can understand to a degree as a young guy who's trying to make an impression. But it did hit me. Our divisional officer actually was a really good guy. He stayed out the way most of the time. He really only got involved if somebody had caused a problem or there was some problem with the class itself. I must admit that as a class leader, you get certain privileges, but they expected a lot of a class leader. I mean, my job, people would have to get up in the morning, get shaved, get washed, get the kit on, make the bed, and I would have to make sure they were downstairs, lined up, ready to go to class. And you can imagine that there are a few barrack room lawyers, there's a few people that are just slow and should never be in the Navy. And you do have a 3-month period, and it's called premature voluntary release. So within that 3-month period, you can just leave if you want. And a few of them did, actually. And I'll tell you a story about that. But I always remember this particular guy was always late. He was always making the team late. And we were waiting to go, and he was still upstairs. And I remember going up and just losing my temper with him completely and threatening him to say, look, if you don't get your arse downstairs now, I'm going to kick the shit out of you. And he did understand then, because ultimately we're all going to get crap because of you. Anyway, he did toe the line. I marched them to the class, and part of that is, you knock on the door, they're all outside, knock on the door. They say, come on in, and they say, Able Seaman Hart, or Seaman Hart reporting, Anson 43 class, ready for your instruction, sir. And they say, okay, wait outside. But there are some, in the mob, if you went down for the drill instructors, they love to cause a bit of pain and upset you. And a few times I'd go down, the guys would be waiting outside at ease, I'd go in, and I'd knock on the door, and say, come in, and I would walk in, and there would be a group of the drill instructors sitting there, and I'd say, Seaman Hart, reporting answer 43 class, ready for your instruction, sir. And this guy just went, are you effing joking? Get your effing arse out there. How dare you come in here? That was disgusting. That was useless. And I was like, I said exactly the same as I always say it. Even now I remember it. Get outside, get out and have a think about this and come back in. And you imagine you're 17 and you know nothing about the Navy. But anyway, I go outside. I remember the guys going, are you okay? And I was like, I don't know what's going on. So I pull myself together, knock on the door again. Okay, come on in. In, say exactly the same thing again. He goes, yeah, okay, good. As I walk out, they're all killing themselves laughing. And I suppose that's, with power comes consequence. And I did realise that over many years is if people like and respect you, they'll pretty much do whatever you say. They'll also protect you. If they fear you, they'll only do what you tell them to do, and they'll never protect you. They'll want you to fall. And I learned that from the Navy. Anyway, that was just one example. I mean, I always remember the drill instructor. We feared him, honestly. He was an evil man. And I remember us getting taught to salute for the first time. And I don't know, he said, Hart, come forward. Right, show me how you salute. So he goes, to the right, salute. So salute to the right. And he said, to the left, salute. It's a bit logical when you think about it. And he just said, if you ever use your left hand again, I'm going to nail it to your head. I learned then, only this hand. So as we continue along, you're having classes every day to cover everything from drill to seamanship to there's a certain amount academic. They even teach you how to wash yourself. Because you think about it, a lot of civilians come in and they teach you about the little crannies you have to get into, the way you start at the top and work your way down. Seems logical, but they will deliver that. Somebody in the shower with their swim trunks on, and they'll talk you through how you wash. So everybody does the same thing, which is key. So as we progress, obviously I get a bit more experience about handling the guys and a few bits and pieces. And I'm getting more and more knowledge about the Navy. But one day I'd realised that I really didn't really know everything about the mob, about the Navy. I was marching the guys to a class and we were heading across the parade ground. Now, I didn't know the parade ground is equivalent to the quarterdeck on a ship, and you never salute an officer on the quarterdeck. It goes back to Nelson's days where you would salute and a sniper would shoot the officer, etc. So I'm marching the guys across. As I'm going across, there's two officers coming towards me. So I'm thinking, I'm going to get this right this time. So as we get closer, I give it, they're on the right, I give an eyes right, I salute, they salute me, one of them salutes me, gives me a nice smile and a nod, and I'm thinking, hey, I've got this. And about 2 seconds later, I hear this, you lot, halt that class. And so halt the class, and this chief just comes running across, and he just starts screaming in my face, how dare you bloody idiot, blah, blah, blah. And he was just ripping him. But you get kind of used to it. You're just like, yeah, okay, I'm going to get a bollocking. Not too sure why, but I'm going to get a bollocking. Anyway, as he gets just this mouthing off of me, and this officer, I see his officer, and he turns, his mate come back, and he goes, hey, Chief, what's the problem here? And the chief goes, why, this bloody idiot here, he saluted you on the parade ground, sir. And this officer says, come on, Chief, should we try a little bit more explaining to the young lad rather than, we should do more explaining and less shouting, he said, something like that. And of course the chief was like, yeah, but he has to be taught. He was like, well, maybe we should, he doesn't know that. So he was just following what he was being taught. Yeah, okay, sir, okay, thank you, sir. Yeah. So he goes away, knowing as soon as the officer is out of sight, I'm going to get another bollocking. And true enough, he just rips in about me again. And I'm just thinking, yeah, I'll just let him go. Then he stops, he goes, I'm going to teach you a lot of bloody lesson. You lot start running round this parade ground 5 times, big parade ground, you know. But we are knowing that I'm going to be late for class there. And even though I was saying, Chief, you know, we have to be at the class by 8:30, he didn't give a shit because he knew. And he stood there and watched us running round for, 5 times. No, we were about 5 or 10 minutes late. And true enough, I got another bollocking because I was 10 minutes late. But the key to this, and I figured this one out pretty quickly, don't blame the chief. Just say, I'm sorry, we were a bit late, and take a bollocking, but don't blame senior ratings at all. It's not worth it. So these are some of the things, some of them good, some of them bad. But one of the good things, I suppose, that came out of this was one of the good things was this. I was towards the end, as you're coming to the end of your basic training, I was offered SSS, and this is called Specially Selected Seaman. I'm sure they could have thought of a better name than that, but there we are. And what they look for is probably a degree of leadership, somebody that will advance quickly. And you could advance to become an officer very quickly. They wanted to get you through the system, like a leading hand, PO, blah, 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 and get you up there as soon as possible. And I had to go for an interview with my divisional officer. And I had 4 officers in front of me, senior officers, and they basically just asked me a load of questions. And I only ever really remember one question, and they said, right, you're on the forecastle, and everybody has been killed except you. What do you do? And I said, report to the bridge. And one of them said, the bridge is no longer there. The bridge is destroyed. What do you do? And I said, find a lifeboat. They were like, oh, yeah, okay. That was a logical conclusion, I thought. There we are. Let's give you one last story. And this is part of it. We go to Dartmoor and we do a 3-day, 4-day event. You basically get the rucksacks on and all that kind of stuff, and you navigate to 4 different places, and you're meant to have food each of them, and then you stay overnight twice or something. I can't remember, but it was November. It was absolutely horrible. I mean, the kit they give you, the boots they give you, the boots were just taken out. They've been in a dryer for God knows how long. They're not your boots, they're just boots that are issued. And the foul weather gear was useless as well. The tent leaked. And we were on Dartmoor for about 4 days. It's not like, the army or the special forces or anything like that. But it's just to make you cold and miserable and horrible. And you're always navigating to get to somewhere where they tell you there's food, but there isn't food, or there's minimal amount of food for you. You don't rest. They'll say, we'll get to this position and you'll have some hot food, and you get there, there's nothing. There's a Land Rover telling you to keep going. It's not horrendous, not that difficult. But one of the things was we had a young guy who was 16, and he wasn't particularly fit, and his boots were killing him. I mean, right from the word go. And on the last day, we were navigating to the last point, but I don't know how many miles it was. It wasn't that far. And eventually, he just couldn't go any further. His feet were killing him. We took his boots off. They were like horrendous blisters, and we're trying to patch him up. And Bob Howard, who is a friend, and still a friend today, a great friend, again, another clearance diver, him and I just decided that he wasn't going to make it. So we said, look, we'll take your rucksack, we'll take a strap each, and we'll walk with your rucksack, and you will patch your feet up. So we patched his feet as best we could. Not really very good at all. And he limped the whole way. But I always remember, as we were getting close to Land Rover, there was the two, because our PO wasn't there, we were handed over to these, I suppose, expedition or training or outdoor training team. And I always remember this PO come running towards us, and he just started screaming at Bob and I, saying, "What the bloody hell are you carrying that for? What do you mean? No, no, no." And I said, "Oh, the guy's feet's gone," and he was going down. And it was just like November. It was like sleet and horrible, and it was interesting that it was just like, it went down. It went down, and I'm just like, I didn't get that at all. And some of the things that happened, you were just like, I never went to university. I wasn't very academic. But I knew what was good and bad. Basic morality come into it, I think. What, was going to leave him there? But that was never going to happen. There was no mobile phones there. There was no nothing. You just kept going until you got to the point. Anyway, he bollocked us and him as well. And they got us all in the Land Rover and took us back. I suppose what I'm trying to give you is an example of, the Navy, by no means, particularly Navy basic training, I didn't feel was difficult. There's a lot of bollocking, a lot of running, a lot of, you're uncomfortable a lot of the time, especially as a class leader. I was pillowed with boots, and that's not a good experience. I was in accommodation. It must have been about 1 a.m, and I always remember I heard our door open, which opened quite a lot. POs would come in and just check everybody was there. And I heard this door open, and I heard this guy speaking, and I didn't pay much attention. I was quite tired. And the next minute, I felt this like, what they do is they put pillowcases with boots in it, and then beat the shit out of you with it. I don't know why they picked on me. No, it was just... What I found out later was he went across to one of the guys and said, "Who's your class leader?" And he said, "Oh, it's him there." And they whacked me. It was like in the face. It was really, you imagine waking up to somebody beating you, and they're welling, there's 3 of them just welling into me. And eventually, they just leg it. And I had a few sort of lumps on top of my head. And I remember my eye not being quite right and things like that. But I didn't mention it to anyone. The lights came on, they have like a small light at the side. I'd switched on the light and got up and went to the toilet. A few of the other guys came through, and they were like, "Look, well, let's go and get them." And I was like, "Well, which room do you think they're from?" Of course, we could end up attacking the wrong people. Never happened again, but I was annoyed that somebody actually pointed them out to me. One of my team pointed them out to me, and he said, "Well, I thought it was one of the leading hands asking who was the class A. I didn't realise it was one of them." Okay, we make mistakes, but generally, basic training wasn't. I didn't find it difficult at all. But because I was given SSS, Specially Selected Seaman, it makes me laugh every time. I was given probably basically they give you a sheet and it says, "What do you want to do after basic training?" And there's a list of jobs. And I put 1 clearance diver, 2 clearance diver, 3 clearance diver, and put it in. But because I was SSS and because I was a class leader, I was able to pick the 100% you were going to get in there. Because, when I was there during that basic training, I realized like 60% of the young guys wanted to be clearance divers. And that kind of blew my mind a bit because I thought, I'm the only one. But you're not. Now, as you sort of go into that position where you pass out and you do your parade and all that kind of stuff, and then you move from there. I moved from there to to wait. There's like a waiting period at Raleigh before you move on to whatever job or ship you're going to. And during that period, as I was a clearance diver, I'd applied to be a clearance diver, I did 3 aptitude tests. So the first time I went, that's pretty straightforward. You jump off a wall, jump into a harbour and swim across with dry suits and all that kind of stuff. But there's loads of people, and eventually they filter them down, you get to the next one. The next one is a lot of, you do the diving. So they put you in a diving gear to see how you deal in black water, etc. I damaged my ankle playing football, I think it was. So during that, when I went for my second aptitude test, I couldn't go because my ankle was badly swollen. So they moved it, about 3 weeks. And then I was able to go for the aptitude test. Myself and a guy called Taff Symes, who was actually in my class. So Taff and I turned up, and I realised it was just the two of us. And these guys that were doing the aptitude test, they were clearance divers. We were down in this old harbour, and they just came up to us and said, "Right, guys, there's only one place, you understand? So how you perform today will determine who starts to be, who will get to be a clearance diver." And I just, in my brain, I thought, he's going down. Whatever happens, I'm going to win. And of course, when I spoke to Taff later, who was a really fit ex-rugby player, he was like, "You're going down." So the two of us were young guys, were like keen. So the idea was to run, jump off the harbour. It's about 15 feet, not high, into the water, swim round the outside, climb up a ladder, run across about 5 times, And they basically said whoever comes first, gets X points, and then we'll go on to the diving, etc. So we take off, and I'm running, I jump off. We're both jumping off together. We get round, and we're going up. Taff gets to the bottom of and it's all slippery, this ladder, and he's climbing up the ladder. I'm just behind him, and I'm thinking, So as I just grab his legs and push myself off the ladder, just holding his legs. So he's hanging like this. he's just hanging. I'm like, and we both drop then into the water. Then I get up and I'm up the ladder. Taff is behind me, and he's punching me and grabbing me and pulling me. And eventually again we fall off and we go up again. We do this about 4 or 5 times. And eventually the guys go, "Stop. Right, both of us come up. So we come up and we're like, absolutely shattered, and we're keyed up. And he goes, "Right, I like your attitude, guys. You'll both go through. You both go to the diving now." Just like that. Just wanted to see how much you wanted it, basically. But it took a while for Taff and I to become friends again after that, because I think if we just continued, it would have probably escalated into trying to drown each other. Then you go on and you basically, you get what they call sabre gear on, and they give you a chain and a hammer and a chisel, and you lower down about 15 feet into the harbour, pitch black, and they say, "Don't come up until you've cut the chain." Well, it's impossible to cut the chain. It's about this thick, and you can barely see the chain underwater. So, but they want to hear it. They want to hear you continuously whacking that chain. And that, I from other people who are just saying, "Stephen, just pin one part of it and just keep hitting." They want to bring it up and see that you've been whacking that chain. So eventually we're brought up. Another thing is that the suits leak. As soon as you go in the water, they fill, not quite full with water, but you're wet inside. So you're very, very cold. You're trying to break a chain in bad visibility. They want to know whether you can tolerate that or not. And they just leave you in there until you've done what they call 2 equalizations, and then you take you up. So we came up, and they were like looking at the chain. "Yep, that's good enough. Yep, that's good enough." Taff and I were then signed off to join the clearance divers course. Our course was SD 17. That ends that part of the basic training. I hope you found it interesting. It does, I mean, I've tried to incorporate quite a number of stories into this, and hopefully it'll give you an idea of what naval basic training was like in 1970s. The next episode will cover the clearance divers course itself, and it is quite interesting. It's a difficult course, it's a hard course. I really, really appreciate you guys listening. I hope you found it interesting. You guys take care. All the best.